gaming chair. Just made it. Just made a gaming chair out of my sweater. My hoodie is my gaming chair. Put some opus form there. Okay, so it's makeshift gaming chair for the people on a budget. Okay, and I took this chair from Air Canada Center or Scotiabank Arena, wherever the Raptors play. That's where I took it from. They threw it outside and pretty much dumped it. They just dumped it, and so I saw an opportunity. I lined up that day to get the OVO Toronto Raptors championship merchandise from 5 in the morning to when they told us to go home because they sold out. And I complained. A lot of people complained. But what I did, I said, I'm not going to take this opportunity to go home empty handed. So I took a couple chairs. And when I came home, I realized they're actually worth over $200 each. So big win for me in that respect. So, anyway, the title of this video is, or the stream is, Why Tesla Will Drop to $400. Now, this is a quick video. I'm not going to go uh, discuss it to death, why it's going to dip, or I should say drop. But don't be shocked. I'm saying this now. Don't be shocked when Tesla drops to $400 to $500 because this stock really hasn't been tested uh, greatly. Um, if you look at the volume over the last, let's look at the volume over the last year. You can see a lot of the volume is actually in the last year, I should say, is at the 150 range, right? But the support really is, you don't see a lot of drops. Like it's just been a meteoric rise, and that's a problem because when you don't show a lot of support, then people have a false idea that the stock is invincible and it's going to go to the moon and reach 1,000. It can't even break 900 at this point in time. It went to 844, but we're seeing in the last month it's just fluctuating uh, to set under $800, and it didn't really have too much volume when it dropped that much compared to when you look at the 6 month chart. Most of the volume was around 400 back in November 13, and I think that was before the stock split, if I'm not mistaken. I bought some at that point too. About at 400, and a lot of volume again in January around 760, but I think those are people selling off because it reached all-time highs at that point. So again, I'm making a very bold prediction. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is simply my opinion, and my forecast could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be right. That just like I said with AMC and GameStop, that GameStop support is not 100. I thought it was 120. It was actually 60 to 80, and we're seeing that unfold today when the support is actually in the 40s to 50s, 60s. And with AMC, I was saying the support is like $4 to $6, $4 or $5, and that's what's happening right now. With Tesla, the real support, just looking at like from a technical analysis point of view, it's very strong uh, between 330 to 400. So yeah, I can see it dropping as low as 330. I don't. This is really bold, but realistically, I don't know if that's going to happen to 330, $330 level. I think it's most likely going to drop at least to 500, uh, 400, $500 range. That's where I see it dropping. So Tesla is a solid buy at those prices. Obviously, people are going to start panicking when they start seeing it going, 700, because let's look at the last 6 months. Okay. Um, they've had again a meteoric rise since the stock split That was in August, I believe. And yeah, so when the stock split, it was, I think it was over almost $1,000 before this the split, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was pretty expensive, and then it did go up from August to November, went up to 500. So it took it a good amount of time, at least 3 months, 2 3 months to get to 500. And the next level was to 600, which only took it about a month or less. And then from 600 to 700, again, it's within the same month. So it's meteoric. So 700 to 800, again, was within the next 2 weeks to a month. And it hasn't been able to break 900, but it tested that, almost did the end of January, and is just fluctuating now between 780 to about 890, but it can't seem to break 890. There's a lot of resistance at 890, 880. Um, and I think you're going to see, once these other competitors enter the market, such as Lucid Motors and so on, uh, Tesla's market share, just like Nintendo's was in the 80s, 90s, they were uncontested, they were undisputed, the top of the crop, the king of their domain. Seinfeld reference there, but yeah, they were the king of their domain, the master of their domain. Nintendo was. They had 90%, over 90% of the market share in terms of video games. So they had that iron grip on the market. They could do whatever the hell they wanted and get away with it in terms of licenses and the fees and all that. Um, so when Sega entered the market as their real competitor, their first real competitor, not Atari, not ColecoVision, not, you know, uh, what's that company that did TurboGrafx 16 NEC, not even them, but it was Sega that really gave them a run for the money, taking almost 50% of the pie from Nintendo. So when you see competitors enter the market, especially ones like Lucid Motors and so on, there are many others, but I mean that's the one that comes to mind. They were really the one who are going to challenge Tesla, and you're not going to see this uh, continue to be 800, 900, 1,000. It's going to go back to 400. I'm going to say 330. If in the worst case scenario, it goes down to 350 to 500 range. So that's going to be normal for Tesla once the competitor joins the fray, joins the automobile market. It becomes a competitor and actually releases their cars. So people's interest and their money will be divided in terms of not just what they buy on the as cars, but even in the stock market. Not everyone is going to be all in on Tesla. They're going to take some of their money, cash out of Tesla, and buy Lucid Motors stock, and maybe have 50 and 50, or maybe even 80% Tesla and 20% of Lucid. But whatever they put into Lucid, they're going to see that rocket ship going to the moon, and they want to join in the feeding frenzy, just like with GameStop and AMC before they exploded. And that, although that was a short squeeze, but I'm talking about an organic growth from a new IPO coming to the market, to the stock market, and it's going to set the market on fire. Uh, Lucid Motors is going to be in the front page of most every financial website, newspaper, whatever publication. It's going to be all the talk on stock twits. Going to be all the talk on Yahoo Finance, everything, Wall Street bets, everything. Lucid Motors is going to be the talk of the town, and you're already seeing a little bit of that bubbling with the CCIV and a big email that people are getting, giving them a little bit of some hype and preview, a sneak preview as to what is in the works coming up. Especially, I think in April, there's going to be a display or demonstration coming up for their products, their vehicles, coming up in April. I'm already in February, so it's not too long from then. You're going to see in April the stock is going to either be public, the IPO for Lucid, and it's going to just explode from the outset. I know it's going to be offered less than $100. I feel like that's going to be a reasonable offering. Um, Between, I'm going to say 10 to 50. That's like a marketable price. And that's just going to go because the demand is going to be so high. It's going to reach $100 within a week or less. And then from that then on, it's just going to be meteoric rise. We could see it go to 200, $300 within the first month. And then the first year, I'm not saying it'll go to Tesla levels because Tesla really is its own beast, but it could at least get to 200, 300 in the first year. But the first month, I think it'll definitely hit $100 within the first week to a month. And then for the first year, you'll see that 300 or 200, 300 price per share um, for Lucid Motors within a year of them they're going public, the public offering. So yeah, that's why Tesla's going to drop because the competitor entering the market competition. So not just Lucid, there's other ones too, and that's going to take a big piece of their pie, which is probably 90% or more, maybe even 80%. So they're going to take pieces of their pie. So they can't have all of the pie because there's only so much money and so many people that want to buy a car and can't afford a car even. So when you have competitors entering their domain, they're going to take at least at least 30% of their market share. So you're going to see their stock drop to 500 pretty much not overnight, but over time, it's going to start dropping and dropping because of the competition. But I mean, competition also fosters growth. So I could be wrong, but I feel like we can just not only based on competition, but also based on the support I've seen on their technical, just from a technical analysis standpoint, 330 to 500 is very realistic for it to drop because it really, again, hasn't really been tested. If you look at their 6 month, I mean, yeah, it dropped to 342. And again, that's what I'm saying. The support really is at 330 to 500. It hasn't really dropped dramatically since the stock split. It didn't, I mean, 485 to 342. I wouldn't say that's really testing in my mind. That's just people driving the stock price down because they know the stock split is impending, so they want to load up before the split. That's what's happening there. But in terms of the 1 year, there really hasn't been a test. A lot of the support uh, pretty much jumped on the bandwagon 300 to 500. So I think we can see it. I know I said $400, but uh, and that's not even an extreme estimate. I'm going to say conservatively 500. Yeah, it'll 500 is realistic. It'll drop to 500. And yeah, you're going to see people supporting it. And you're already seeing that right now when it dropped to sub 800, went to 780 and went back up to 880. So that was a good time to buy, but I don't see this as bullish. I see this as bearish. This is what we're seeing here is was increasing steady support and steady resistance, but now we're starting to see a period of stagnation, and even the resistance is decreasing somewhat. The support is also decreasing a little bit too. It's hard to predict, but just with the simple fact of uh, competitors entering their market is a big factor. A second factor is one of the biggest sources of income for Tesla is their government credit, and I believe there is no set date when that ends. But once that ends, their stock is going to plummet big time because that isn't that isn't infinite. It's not going to keep going forever. Uh, that's probably the biggest factor. That's probably number one factor. Number two is competition, and number three is just the stock market, just fundamentals. Tesla is way overvalued at where it is right now, 800. Um, I really do feel personally that it is probably worth between 100 to 200, 100 to 300, but um, I mean, I was an investor in Tesla. I did buy at 400 before it split, and then I sold it at 850. When I could see that it was stagnating, and just looking at what's going on with their competitors and with the electronic vehicle or electric vehicle market. So those two reasons alone are going to bring the stock not crashing. It's not going to crash. It's just going to maybe for some people it will seem like a crash, but a real crash is GameStop where it went to 450 and then it went all the way down to 50 and under. So that's a real crash. But if Tesla crashes, it's more like 800 to 100. That's a crash. But going down to 300 to 400 isn't a crash. It's just simply something that hasn't happened in a long time to Tesla, and that's being tested. It hasn't really been tested, and you don't really see that going on even throughout their history when they were released and when they were trading at sub $10 points. The only test I can see is when they were at 180. They were at 180 in 2020, February 2020. They dropped all the way down to 85, but that's because everyone dropped because the stock market was so volatile. People are panicking in terms of future of everything of the planet. So you have Tesla dropping at 72.24. They're at $70. They're at $70 in March. So that was a big test, not just for Tesla, but everybody. So you can see the real bottom looks like 72, funnily enough. So I know I said 400, but I don't think it's going to drop to 72. That's really a apocalyptic Armageddon like scenario, 72. But yeah, I don't see that dropping that low. But I think 350 to 500 is more reasonable. And we're going to see a lot of support in that range of 330 to 500. There's going to be strong support, especially 330 to 400 range will be very strong. It will start to break down once it goes sub uh, goes sub 700. Once it goes below 750, then breaks goes down to 700. Will go down to 600. It's pretty much a reverse of what is going on the chart right now. So when it goes under 500, you're going to see a lot more support around 500. People are going to start buying a lot, like massive volume at 500, and people are going, well, "What the hell is happening? It's dropped from 890 to 500, and it's going to continue going downward up to 400, where you're going to see massive support at 400, and then at 330, it's just at that point it's just millionaires who are very very patient are going to be buying up all those shares, and then it's going to go back up, kind of stay around 400, 500. So I think 330. I'm not saying that's the floor, but that's where it's going to drop, and it'll go up again. But I don't know if it's going to continue to tank because of the competition, and then like I said, the end of the government credit that they've been receiving. So that could even drop back to be honest, it could go to 100. But this is certainly a scenario that it's not 100% guaranteed. Obviously, none of this is guaranteed, but I see this happening. I really, really do see this occurring with Tesla in terms of it dropping to 330 to 500 level. And I'm saying 500 just to be conservative because it may not go all the way down to 400, but certainly 500 is realistic. Just looking at um, the 1 year, the 5 year, and the 1 year, you can see that very much. It's a strong level of stability between those levels of 300 to 500. And a lot of volume occurred between 150, actually 100 to 150. There's a lot of volume there, and just pretty much consistent volume, but it really tapered off once it hit 500. So a lot of support between 300, um, sorry, even 200 to 500. But yeah, people are going to be waiting for this to drop. I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for because they know this stock can be valued at $1,000 at certain points. But with the competition, given that, and the government credit, and once that ends, eventually, and eventually again, the competition joins the game, are you going to see the stock plummet significantly just on those two things alone, not withstanding the market fluctuations and bad news, things like that. So, and also the shorts, because those people are just manipulative. So, um, yeah, just those actually those four factors will bring it down to 300 to 500. So it's this is a dream that they're in, being at 700. Uh, they're in a dream right now. A lot of Tesla shareholders in the company itself, 780. Uh, yeah, 780 to 890. Uh, you know what? It could break 900, could break 1,000, because I feel like when it does break 900, it'll go to 1,000. But that can only be sustained to a certain point until again the competition enters and the government credit ends. It won't stay at those levels. It will have to drop. And again, it hasn't been tested. The stock has not been tested very much since March 2020, where it went down all the way. Actually, everything was tested at that point. But again, you don't really see a big test. And it's hard to read this graph as to where the support is. That's why I'm saying support looks very much to me like 330, even 300, but I'm going to say 330 because that looks like the that dip where it bounced up. You can see the support at September 8th. If you look at September 8th, right away, the following week, it went up to 400 again and it's steadily rising. So it did go from 475 to 330. So you can see it was $100 drop, and usually it doesn't do that too often. Tesla doesn't drop by $100 very often, but it tested 330. So um, the lowest number I could see this going to now, this, notwithstanding COVID and acts of God and all that, is 300. So 300, excuse me, any price between 300 to 400 is a really good buy for Tesla. I see it going back to 500 right away once it hits that point, but I don't know how long they'll be sustained. So 300 to 400 is my price point to enter this stock again. I'm not going to buy it again at these inflated prices. Um, Not because I don't believe in the company, but because for the factors I did mention. So that's all for this video. Thank you very much for your time. 23 minutes. I didn't want to do like a 3 hour stream like I just did a while ago. All right, thanks. So please comment and subscribe and like if you, or whatever, if you dislike, just do what you want in terms of comments. I appreciate anyone's feedback, except for the bots. Just let me know what you think. If this makes sense to you, does this sound? Do you believe that it will fall as well, or do you think it's just going to continue to go to 1,000 and then smash that and go to 2,000 and become the next Google and Amazon? I don't personally see that happening, but um, again, with the competition, at the end of the government credit, you can see uh, that might bring it down somewhat. Although I do have to say, competition can grow the market when there is competition. Um, Sometimes the market just grows organically, like Nintendo and Sega. They probably helped each other out in a lot of ways and grew the market together with healthy competition. So, you know what? I could be completely wrong and gonna look like an idiot once Lucid Motors is in the, competing with Tesla. Maybe they'll just help each other grow. But I think the government credit is going to be a huge factor at play. Um, so I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But I really do feel, just based on technical analysis alone, that the real support for the stock is 300 to 400, even 450. But uh, once it hits 500, and it's going to happen, believe me, people are going to start panicking and say, "What the hell happened?" Well, I've been saying it, and I told you today on February 11th, 2020, that the stock is going to go down for the reasons I mentioned. So, thank you very much, and that's the end for my opinion. Peace on Tesla stock.